Hello. In creating this set of interview questions, I wanted to make it relatively general because I knew that the interviewees themselves are the type of individuals that would expand on generic based questions in a very fruitful manner. I also wanted to choose a set of interviewees that definitely exhibited differences in their career fields, their opportunities that they've had, access to, but have a relatively common denominator, which is their upbringing. One of the people that I interviewed was actually my father, but the other two themselves also had very similar upbringings and cultural family backgrounds as well. And so when I first started out, I asked them what their background was, and obviously I got a relatively similar response: Middle Eastern, many of them were Egyptian. The third interviewee spent a considerable amount of time growing up in Saudi Arabia as well. Uh, there was that kind of difference in upbringing. Um, However, in that difference, I also saw that the other two people themselves also had different locations that they grew up in, and so I expected there to be a shroud of similarity there. I asked them what led them to specialize in analytics and economics. My father, he was a physician, but he utilized analytics throughout his career in logistical development and statistical biostatistics and so on and so forth. The first interviewee, which was named Salwa Solomon, she utilizes analytics and economics in several facets of her business development, whether that be running forecasting models for projected income and projected revenue growth, or cultivating and understanding which markets that she needs to expand into based off of the revenue streams that are coming from the same companies that already operate in those areas. So there was a little bit of a difference there in terms of the actual application of the degree and emphasis and specializations that they've received, even though they've both gotten the same. Same thing goes for the third interviewee. I mean, he's a car dealer, and so when it comes to forecasting revenue growth, you're talking about doing it from the lens of a car dealer versus the lens of somebody who runs a business development consultancy. The next question that I asked is, what do you consider to be your main inspiration? And so that's where I got the most deviation from the three candidates. The first person, Sadwa, her inspiration was helping people and making sure that she develops and trains the best possible future business leaders, that she can. And she kind of has a head start because her clientele is corporate people, people that are already in that veil, people that are already in those roles, but through different analyses that she conducts, pinpoint specific traits and leadership and business development traits that she can cultivate in them. The second interviewee, which was my father, Raouf, his main kind of driver, his main inspiration is success. It seems relatively generic, but he kind of expanded on it by talking about how success entails everything. Success to him is helping people. Success is making sure you put a smile on somebody's face. Success is the embodiment of taking your failures and turning them into positivity. And so that was what he said. He talked about how success, the aspiration for it, he couldn't give success as his main inspiration if he wasn't so hard on himself. He talked about how where others would view his successes as great accomplishments, he would always look at things and analyze things in a relatively negative manner when he was still coming up in the medical field, where people would tell him that he had succeeded in many facets when in reality he was the hardest on himself and he didn't think that he actually accomplished that much. The third interviewee talked about his main inspiration being uh, financial growth, and so it wasn't as though he wanted riches for the sake of riches. He talked about financial growth and financial success being attributed to the fact that now he can provide for his family because his young son is still, developing, growing up, and he aspires to lead by example. So his children were another thing that was his main inspiration because he talked about how he seeks to instill that example of hard work in his son. He frequently brings his son to the car dealership with him. He lets him sit down and visualize the models that he runs and so on and so forth. Um, you know, all three of them, um, they laid a set of different accomplishments that have escaped them, and that was the basis on which I asked the fourth question, which is, what do you hope to accomplish throughout your career, throughout the rest of your career, I should say. Um, they gave me a rundown of several different things. Instead of getting into the nitty gritty of it, I'll just mention that there was a similarity there, and it could be attributed to the way that they were all raised, which I mentioned was in a similar fashion, similar upbringing, etc. Um, the similarity that I saw is they're always striving to be better than their current position. They're always striving to improve upon um, the angles and facets in which others would pinpoint and look at and say, well, you're already perfect there, but in reality, they're perfectionists, and so they don't